So today's objective is to multiply unit fractions by unit fractions visually and numerically. So a unit fraction, remember, is a fraction that has a 1 as the numerator. So just a quick review. Last week we looked at how to find the fraction of a whole number, which also just means multiplying. So half times the 4. And so remember last week we learned, so if there's 4, I can draw 4 pieces. I divide it in half and I can see 2. But also I can just multiply them. So 1 times 4 is 4. And then the 2 times that invisible 1 would give us 2. 4 over 2 would be the same as 2, right? Because 4 divided by 2. Today we look at multiplying 2 fractions. Okay, problem 1A. There's 2 parts. Okay, so I want you to imagine that you have a big pan of brownies, right? If you wanted to take half of those brownies to school, you would break this one whole in half, right? Which would mean that 1/2 of 1 would give us 1/2. That makes sense, right? What if you only had half of a brownie to start off with, right? So if I only have half a brownie, a pan of brownie, and I want to take half of the half to school, how much brownie would that be? Well, here's our half, right? Our next step is going to be to divide the fraction in half the other way. So if you look here, I can kind of turn it. There was already a half there. And so what I did is I just cut it in half vertically. All right, so that way we can figure out what 1/2 of the half is. So I break it apart down the middle, and now I'm going to shade in 1/2 of this. And we can see that here, right? So if I shade 1/2 of the half, I can see that there's one piece now that has both shadings, which becomes our numerator. And in total, there are 4 pieces. Oops, my bad. So 1/2 of 1/2 gives me 1/4. That's how to solve it visually, okay? Numerically, same picture, right? But if I do 1/2 times 1/2, you can see that basically we ended up multiplying the numerators. 1 times 1 is 1. And then we multiplied the denominators and got 4. Okay, so right now we're focusing on doing both visually and numerically. All right, problem 2. So problem 2 is 1/2 times 1/3. So again, we still only have half a pan of brownies, but this time, instead of taking half of it to school, maybe you want to take 1/3 of it. So same thing, we draw the 1/2. It doesn't matter which fraction you start off with, but for now, I'm starting with the 1/2. Then I'm going to split it in thirds. So you guys can see these red lines that I drew horizontally, and now there's thirds. So here's 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. You're only going to shade in the part that's already been shaded before, because that's the brownie that exists, right? We're not going to shade this part of the pan because that part of the pan is empty. And now we could see how many pieces are double shaded. 1, that's our numerator. And then how many do we have total? 6. Now let's look at it numerically. If I have 1/2 times 1/3, it's going to equal 1/6. And we can see that in the picture and both when we multiply the denominators and the numerators. All right, problem 3, 1/3 times 1/3. So again, in our area model, gonna start off with 1/3, shade that 1/3 in. Next thing, we're gonna have to divide it into thirds the other way. So now I have 3/3 this way, and so horizontally and vertically at this point. So here we could see this is 1/3 shaded in, and this is 1/3 of that 1/3 shaded in. How many are double shaded? 1. How many parts are there in total? 9. So 1/3 of 1/3 equals 9. And we can see that here when we do it mathematically as well, right? So 1/3 times 1/3, 1 times 1 is 1, 3 times 3 is 9. I know a lot of you are probably already seeing, okay, this is pretty easy. I just need to do the numerator and the denominator. Yes, but you also need to be able to draw area models that go with it. So make sure that you are drawing these as well. Let's move on to question 4. All right, so question 4 is 1/3 times 1/4. So here, I just shaded it over here just to show you it doesn't matter. We have 1/4 here. Now I'm going to split that into thirds the other way. So you can see I split it apart horizontally. And then I shaded in one of those pieces because that is 1/3 of the 1/4. Again, we could see how many are double shaded? 1. How many are there in total? 12. So 1/3 times 1/4 equals 1/12. And we can see that also when we solve it numerically, right? 1/3 times 1/4 equals 1/12. All right, and that's it for today. Here's your exit ticket, 1/2 times 1/4. Go ahead and solve it with a area model and with the numbers. All right, good job.
Thanks for watching.